Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Simple C10. I'm getting really excited because we're almost done with the air ride of Lucky. And actually today we're going to focus on the Holley EFI gas tank. Go ahead and get it mounted to the rear of her frame. We may have to move back the 10 Works rear cross member just a little bit more. I'm not sure. I haven't even unboxed the gas tank yet. So you're going to go along for that ride with me. I'll get it unboxed in a second. We'll sit it in there and see what kind of clearance we have. But before that, if you're just now tuning into the build, the last couple episodes have been action-packed. We've done the 10 Works trailing arms, the VeloWorks rear do-it-yourself slam kit. We've installed the Watts link, the 10 Works rear shock relocation, the 10 Works rear cross member, and there's much more to come. But I'm hoping today we can do the EFI gas tank. We can get some of the rear brake lines, go ahead and run all of those, and then get ready to install the air ride system, the Airlift 3P, the tank, the compressors, everything from the Simple C10 air ride kit. I am excited because my friend Mark is sending me something that he made, and I may offer it on the website later on, but it is a bracket that holds your tank and holds your Airlift 3P manifold, and it bolts above the gas tank on your rear frame. So if that works, I'll mount the compressors to the side of the frame and run the compressors up to the tank, and it could be a really simple design that could really look good in the back of the truck. So another thing that I have coming next week is the Porterbuilt control arms for the front. So I tried the chopping block arms, and come to find out, if you get the narrowed and forward an inch, they don't work well with the 5.5 inch back spacing of the wheel. The clearance is fine in the wheel well, but what happens is they won't turn lock to lock. It'll turn almost all the way, and the back of the wheel is hitting the control arm. I've updated chopping block on this, and they're looking into the design, but for the time being, I reached out to Porterbuilt, and they're sending me a set of their arms that will be fine with the 5.5 inch back spacing that these Santa Cruz wheels have from US Mag. But we'll get the gas tank in, focus on the rear brake lines on the rear end, go ahead and get those mocked up, maybe run the brake line all the way up to the front. I'm not sure yet. Get the control arms off of there and get everything ready for when the Porterbuilt arms come. They're ready. When the bracket for the air tank and all that comes, it's ready to throw on the back. And then once that happens, we can get this truck on the ground, put the bed back on it, and start to look at what we're going to do with the raised bed floor. And I hope you're excited about that too, because I mentioned it before. I am doing my first tilt bed. I'm going to do it with plywood, and very similar to Jason Venata. I love his design that he did for the rear tilt bed. So I'm going to kind of go by his design. He's done it on 67 to 72 trucks, but I'm going to try to incorporate a little of what he's done with the plywood, with the slats on there, and with the shocks. I've got the LS Fabrication scissor hinges for the front. So I've got the hinges that are going to raise up nicely, and this will be the first one that I can actually raise up and look at all the cool stuff underneath and be able to maintenance it. After the raised bed floor, then we're looking at maybe a sheet metal rear panel that's going to block the raised bed floor right there, where usually in Francis I put the little storage box. I just want to kind of block that off and make it smooth, make it look really nice, paint it the same color as the truck, and then get some custom tubs made for the rear of this truck, because the factory ones that I pulled out, they had a lot of that textured type stuff. They were kind of beat up. So I'm going to get some custom tubs for the back of this truck that fit in the raised bed floor, bolt those into the tilt bed. Right now I'm not sure if I'll get to the raised bed floor before or after the engine. I really need to get this truck over to Zach's, get this engine pulled out and painted up, get all the Holley front mid mount, the Sniper 2 system, all the things that we're going to do under the hood of this truck done. I know that's a lot, but I'm just getting excited about this show season. Weather's starting to warm up. I'm excited to go out and cruise with some of you guys. But I did want to share a list of shows that I will personally be going to. I won't have a booth at every show, but I will be going and parking Francis at these shows. And whenever I get Lucky done, maybe at the 2 Nashville shows. C10 and C10 Nationals, I'll have Lucky there right beside Francis, and you can see both of them. So here's the list of shows that I'm going to. I had to jot them down so I remembered them all, but I'm just going to read through these so you guys know what shows I'm going to be at. I'll let you know where I'm going to have a booth at, but the majority of these shows I'm just going, participating. I may record some footage while I'm there, but really just going to hang out with the community. I'll start out with Good Guys. That's here at Nashville Super Speedway, May 17th, 18th. Badland, Bama, May 31st, June the 1st. Be going with my friend Brian and his green stepside. Also, my friend Adam's got a yellow Ford truck that's bagged. It'll be down there in the Ford garage. June 14th is the Redneck Rumble. That's here in Lebanon at the fairgrounds. And I'll just be going and hanging out there. It's always a cool show to go to. C10's in the city in Atlanta on June the 29th. C10, Southeastern Truck Nationals. This is where things get really fun. I'm hoping to have both of my trucks there July the 12th and 13th. And I'm going to have a booth set up there and have all my parts available, what I have in stock. South Illinois Showdown. That's August the 30th. I plan on driving up there and being a part of that show, just hanging out with everybody. Triple Crown of Rotting. That's at the Nashville Super Speedway. Last year was the first year of that show. It's a mixture of old school cars, trucks. It was a really neat show. So I'm going to go and hang out there September the 6th. C10 Nationals, October the 4th and 5th. I'll be hanging out at C10 Nationals. I'll have a booth at that show too. It's at the Nashville Super Speedway. And then not on this list, but I plan on going to Dino's. I'm not sure if I'm going to have my truck there or not. It is a 3-day drive up there, 24 hours there, 24 hours back, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet. I would have to take 2 weeks of PTO to make it up there, or I could just fly up there in a couple hours and hang out with everybody and then fly back. I don't know yet. I'll let you guys know. But yeah, that's the shows that I'm going to. If there's any others that you think I should go to that's close to Tennessee, then post those in the comments and let me know about it. I want to take a minute and just say thank you guys so much for your support, your encouragement. It really means a lot to me. Again, if you're new to the channel, you can click the title to this video and it's going to be a Dropbox. It's going to have a link to all the parts that I talked about on this video, some from the past video, and my website, simpleC10.co. Got to get updated on this list. This is crazy to think we made this list in December with all the stuff that we wanted to do, and I could barely fit it all on here. And now here we are about to knock out a bunch of other stuff and get close to past halfway done with this list. So let's go ahead. We were able to get the 10 Works trailing arms on there, the VeloWorks rear do-it-yourself slam kit, the VeloWorks step notch and bridge is done. 10 Works rear shock relocation, we did that on the last video. The Watts link, did that. Rear frame cross member, that's the last thing that we did. And that puts us to where we're at today with the Holley EFI gas tank and end tank pump. Once we get the bed on and the airlift 3-piece system and all the Simple C10 air ride kit hooked up, we can take this over to RS Restorations, and Zach's going to pull the engine, install the cam, paint the block. While he's doing all that, I'm going to paint the firewall, get that all cleaned up, put in the master cylinder from level 7, and we'll start to put on the Sniper 2, the Holley mid-mount, the dress-up kit, the Sniper intake, and then the ShiftWorks 700R4 trans, 10 Works transmission cross member, and then we'll have a running and driving truck, and the vintage air will be the last thing that we put on there. And we'll probably get to the raised bed floor before the vintage air, just so I can have the truck finished by June. So we've only got 7 weekends away from where I need the truck to be done for Southeastern Truck National. So 7 weekends sounds like a lot, but when you only have a day or two a week, that really means we've got about a week of work left to get all this stuff done. And as I say that, now I'm stressed out. We're going to get it done, though. We're going to get it done. Somehow, some way. Shout out to Holley for being a sponsor of this build. they provided me with some awesome stuff to install on this truck. So we've got the EFI conversion fuel tank. That'll be the first thing from Holley that we're installing. But as we get to the engine, this old 350 right here is going to get a ton of Holley parts added onto it, and it's going to be completely transformed by the time we're done with it, with the Sniper 2 system, the front drive system, the Sniper intake, the valve covers, pretty much everything on the engine is going to be changed, and Zach's going to install the cam on there. Really excited about that, but thank you, Holley. This is the first time I've installed a Holley gas tank. I usually go with the Boyd gas tank, so we'll see the differences. I'll share the good, the bad, the ugly, and give you my honest feedback of Boyd compared to Holley. Here's some information about the tank that we're installing. This is a Tanks Inc. tank, but Holley has included a lot of their EFI stuff with this kit. It's supposed to be a direct bolt-on, but since we're mounting it to the top of the frame, we'll see if any modification is necessary. It includes the 255 pump and internal tank baffling, and the tank is powder coated for corrosion resistance. It includes the tank, the sender, the fuel pump, and the filler neck, and the complete EFI fuel tank solution in one box. We'll see about it. I'm excited. Let's pull it out of the box. Hopefully it fits in the back of this frame. I don't know. I did have a friend send a picture of one that he used, and I might have to move the TenWorks cross member all the way back to the rear of the frame. We will see. It might be a little bit wider than a Boyd tank. A Boyd tank went all the way right here up against the TenWorks. And the reason that we have to scoot that further back is because of the Watts link. If you didn't have a Watts link, then that tank could probably get a lot closer to the rear end. But let's unbox this thing, check it out. All right, so here's everything out of the box. We've got the tank. It's nice and powder coated, like they mentioned. Looks good. And it does have some flanges on here, so I'm hoping those flanges work well on the frame where I can just drill through those, put some riv nuts or something to bolt it in so I can unbolt it from the top. This looks like the filler neck kit. So it has the corks, the screws, the filler neck. Comes with a rollover vent tube. That's nice. I believe this is the sending unit. Okay, I was confused for a minute because I'm not used to seeing the in-tank pumps like this, but here's the setup. So I've got to just install this pump assembly on here and put it down in the tank. Comes with some nice instructions, so we'll do that when we get ready for it. Just a quick recap, this is what you get in the Holley EFI gas tank kit. So you're going to get the gas tank, you're going to get the in-tank fuel pump, the sending unit, and the fuel neck filler. This kit doesn't come with the fuel filler cap. I wasn't sure what kind. That was an option that you could add on, but I wasn't sure if I was going to try to run this up through where the sides of the bed are, where the raised bed floor is, or just leave this kind of down on the tank where you raise up the raised bed floor and then fill it up there. So I will get a cap eventually when I determine what type that I want, but I want to first put the tank, set it down onto the frame and look at how we're going to bolt it in, and then we'll install all the pieces on it once we get it mounted to the area that we need on the truck. All right, here goes the first try. Setting this tank down in there. I have a feeling I'm going to have to move back the cross member, but we will see. Be nice if it just sit right in there nicely. It's so close. It's so close. It's hitting right on the front of the tank here, but it's this far away from the thing, and then these little lips are hitting the notch. I've got a decision to make here, and I'm not sure what's the best. I can either move this rear cross member back and bolt this part into this hole here, but this is also where the bed sits on and mounts on. So I really wanted to leave these holes empty so I don't have to try to work the bed bolts through this, through the cross member, and bolt it in. And then if I were to just move it up just a little bit, then I'd have to drill 6 holes to get the cross member to fit. That's one option. Or as you can see on this cross member, it kind of goes out and then it swings out a little bit wider right here. And it's about a quarter, maybe a half of an inch out further. I think if this cross member was just straight across like this, that gas tank could slide back enough to fit in there perfectly and I wouldn't have to move anything. The cross member would still be bolted in here. It just wouldn't have this little bit of a wider section toward the side here. Or just tape this off and cut this little bit of a ledge off of here and touch it up with some paint. And I think that's the option that I want to go. I hate to cut into a nice cross member already, but I need that tank to fit, and it's already bolted in. Everything's good to go. And I don't think it's going to hurt the integrity of this cross member to just cut out this little section right here. All right, that turned out nicely. We just trimmed the edge there so it's all one piece. I've got it touched up with some black paint. Now I'm going to put the gas tank back in there and hope and pray that this thing fits now. I was assuming it was going to fit. It looked like it was going to fit, but I've made mistakes in the past, I will admit, as we all have. As Ace Ventura, pet detective, would say, like a glove. This thing fits in there perfectly. Plenty of room right here. These are flat to here. This little flange right here is not close to the notch anymore. So all we have to do is drill us 4 holes through this gas tank. I'll probably just drill all the way through the gas tank, all the way into the frame so I know where the holes line up. And then we'll put some rib nuts in the frame, because on this, you can't get up in here to get a nut on the back side. So your best option is to use a rib nut. So this is a nice setup. I like how the gas tank goes all the way against this and it's nice and flush. It looks like it was made for it. There's plenty of clearance right here. That Watts link is not going to get any further back than what it is right there. It's going to go on a pivot. Plenty of space in between the notch. All right, here's a quick run through of what I'm about to do. First, I'm going to take the drill bit and I'm going to drill all the way through the gas tank flange all the way into the frame, and then put 4 holes there. Then I'm going to come back and use my rib nut tool and I'm going to install these 4 rib nuts. I'll take some of this kill mat that I had left over, double it up. That way there's a little bit of a sound barrier between the gas tank flange and the frame to keep from any vibration. I'll make sure that my bolts go through the flange, through the kill mat, into the rib nut, and tighten nicely. And then we'll have the gas tank mounted in there. It's pretty easy. Next on this EFI gas tank is to install the sender unit, the fuel pump, the fuel fill, our quart gaskets and hardware and all that stuff. But these parts are universal, so we're going to have to measure. These instructions are very nice. It comes with step-by-step how to measure the depth of your tank to know how far to put your float, and all the information is here for us. So we're going to follow step by step through this guide, make sure we get everything installed correctly, and then we'll move on to the next thing. I'll walk through step by step how I install each of these items, because if you are going to order a tank, it's probably going to be this kit. So maybe this will help somebody. But I'm going to start with this sender unit here, and it has a guide with instructions. So it tells us to measure the depth of the fuel tank. I already did that. It's 10 inches. And then it's going to tell us that the float length from right here to the end of the float needs to be 6.4 inches. So we'll go ahead and adjust that when we get it ready. But the main thing we have to change is the depth. With these screws here, it tells us to take out these two screws and the screws in the back. And then we are basically going to slide this bracket in where this other extended bracket is. And that will make this a little bit shorter for our 10-inch tank. Basically all we did is take two screws out of the plastic part right here and then remove this bracket and then slid this one back in there. And all you do is attach these two screws lightly and then adjust it to the height. There we go. And you see I just kind of wrapped that wire back around it, kind of how it was before I took it off. Slide this in there. This is supposed to be 6.4 inches from the middle of the float to where it bolts in. Put it this way just so I can. It's about perfect right there. We'll go ahead and bolt that in. There we go. I'll take something and I'll cut off the end here. I went ahead and cut off this end, that's 6.4 inches from middle to middle. This is 5 inches tall, and that's all we have to do with this right here. Feed that up through here. All right, it's pretty self-explanatory right here. I'm just going to slide in the sending unit and make sure that this isn't hitting the side, so I'll probably just go off to the side like this. So whenever we get ready to actually hook this up, the middle part is going to go up to your gauges, to the fuel gauge, and then this part right here will go to a chassis ground. Next thing we have on this Holley EFI gas tank is the fuel pump. And looking at the instructions, it's very detailed instructions, but you've got to do some math again to figure out what size you need for this tank. This is a 10-inch deep tank. So you just kind of go step by step through here. It has some things to go by. I'll walk you through it. But we're basically taking the height of the filter sock all the way up to the top of the sleeve, which is considered P right here, the pump and sock. And we're going to subtract that from a few of these tubes to get everything to the right height that we need it. So let's start doing some math, get this cut correctly, and get this in the gas tank. As I go through this, I'm going to talk about it, kind of talk you through it, and I'm going to try to cut this down to make it as simple as you can. But it says first measure the depth of your tank. We know the depth of our tank is 10 inches. So that is our D. D is 10 inches. The S is depth, which is 10, minus P, and P is the pump and sock depth from the top of the pump to where the sock is. So let's go ahead and put the sock on the pump and measure that. All right, so I'm going to measure the pump with the sock, and it says all the way up to the top, or 4.5. I think it's 4.5, but we'll see. So if it is 4.5, S equals 5.5. And D minus 1 inch is the return line. So that is 9 inches is the return line. This part right here is the return line. So we've got return line 9 inches. The S is 5.5 and our D is 10. So trim the return line and supply tubes to the length determined in step number 1. From here to here is going to be 9 inches. So let's go ahead and mark that. That's right here. That one just cut with scissors. So the return line was D, which is the depth, 10 inches minus 1, that's 9 here. Now what we're going to do, D, which is our depth, that's 10 inches minus P, which is 4.5. We've got 5.5. That's what we need the supply line right here to be, the S part. 5.5. Heat this up with a heat gun and then slide it over this part right here. It says to go ahead and slide on the 2 hose clamps, and I'm going to get my heat gun out and heat this end up, and then we're going to slide this down over it into the tube and then clamp it down with the hose clamp. It said on the 2 and the 4 versions, leave this white nylon sleeve on there. On the other versions, you'll take that off, but we'll slide this part straight over this pump. So let's heat that up, slide it on, clamp it on, throw a few zip ties on, and get our electrical piece clipped in, and we're going to be close to done with this. Throw a couple zip ties on this to hold the return line to the actual body right here. There we go. Got a fuel pump, pretty easy. I really like how this looks with the vent tube, return, send, the wires that are sealed off. Really good design. It seems really sturdy. I like it. Let's go ahead and put on this quart filter, and we'll go ahead and install this on to the truck as well. All right, same situation. Just kind of get it to fit down in there. Last but not least is the fuel fill right here. And this is just going to get a gasket with the screws. The 2 items that I'm not installing yet that I will later on is the rollover vent tube. So there's going to be a tube that goes from right here, it says a V for vent, and this is going to go higher than what the fuel neck is, maybe up the side here somewhere, and mount. And that's how the tank is going to breathe. Whenever it has a return line pushing fuel back in, the air has to escape from somewhere. So this is a valve. It'll allow the air to escape, but if it ever turns over, then the valve stops the fuel from escaping this vent valve, so the truck doesn't spill gas everywhere. And then this tube is just going to slide on here, and then this will go through where your bed floor is, and you would mount a fuel fill on the top, and that's kind of what you do. But for right now, I'm leaving this off. I'm not sure what I'm doing with the fill valve yet. I may just end up having a cap down low, so when you lift the raised bed floor up on the tilt, you just open it up and fill it up here, because this possibly may be where all my air ride stuff is, if there's enough room between the raised bed floor and the tank with the bracket that I have coming in. If not, I'm going to mount all my air ride stuff in the front of the bed on a little platform and be able to get to it when I raise the bed floor. We've got our gas tank installed. Now we're going to run some AN lines. Now you could run some 3/8 fuel line to fittings with the clamp on them and everything, but I really like to run these AN lines. It's super clean. So what we're going to do is run from the tank. I bought these connectors. These are 1/4 inch to 6 AN, and these are going to go in both the send and return on the tank. Those will screw in there. That way we can put one of these connectors on here that screw in, that goes to an AN line, and that'll run up to our fuel filter regulator. So I'll map this out and kind of talk through it as I go. But if you've never heard of a fuel filter regulator, what this does is allow you to run a returnless system. So this line right here is going to go all the way up to your Sniper 2 system, and then the other side of the fuel system will be capped off. So there doesn't need to be a whole other line running all the way back to your fuel tank. I really like this setup. So what's going to happen, this is going to install on the side of the frame with these brackets right here. And this line will run from the tank, from the send, all the way in here. And then this will go all the way up to the Sniper 2 system. And then this part right here will have this 90 on it like this, and this will go to the return back to the tank. So as close as we can get this to the tank, that's all the 2 lines that you have to run to the tank. And then we just run one line all the way up to the Sniper 2 system. That's why I like it. It's very simple. I've done 2 videos on this in the past. I love this system. It just looks really good. What I'm going to do from the tank is use these 2 1/4 inch NPT to 6 AN, and then it's probably going to be angled a little bit like this. So what I plan to do is use one of these 45s to get the lines to go around and over the notch, and then run all the way to here and to here. But this will be right here. Let's kind of get that started to show you. This will be like this. Next, we'll have this as a 3/4 with a rubber gasket to 6 AN, or it's called a 8 orb to a 6 AN. And this will go in the fuel filter regulator, and that'll just clamp tightly where the rubber is sealing. We'll install our fittings on both sides, get this bolted in. That way we can measure our AN line from here all the way to both sections and cut it. And then we will put these type of ends on the fittings. That way we can plug it in. These will bolt into here like that, just like that. And then these lines will be ran to that. We're getting ready to run our AN lines from the EFI fuel tank to the fuel filter regulator. I'm going to go ahead and install these fittings, get the clamp on. This is a frame mount clamp. It's going to slide on here, and then it's going to bolt in to the frame. It secures it nicely. I like to use these. You don't have to use those. You could secure this any way that you want. If you don't buy the full kit, then you'll have to buy these separately, but these are just going to slip over here and then tighten down with 2 of these Allen head screws. I've done this a couple times now, and from experience, these things are super tight on here, so I like to just spray it down with a little WD-40 and then go back and kind of wipe it. That way I can slide it on here without scratching everything up. So I'm going to do that now, slide them on there, get the fittings on there, then we'll get it kind of on the frame rail where we want it, and then begin to cut our lines, plumb these into the tank. This is what we want right here. These are the 2 lines that are going to run back to the fuel tank. This is your return line, and this is your send line that'll go through here up to the EFI Sniper 2. Next, we're going to put these 2 fittings on the gas tank right there for the send and the return. These are 1/4 inch NPT to 6 AN, and what we're going to do to seal those is use this. This is the same stuff that I use on my air fittings. It's pneumatic hydraulic sealant, the 54540. This is good for air pressure lines, but also it works well with fuel. It works on anything except for plastic fittings. So this is some great stuff. It's about $20 a bottle, but totally worth it. I use it on my air fittings and then now on the fuel, and it's rated for all that. So just a quick run through of what we're doing. Those 2 fittings right here, we're going to connect lines to those, and we're going to loop them around and run them over the notch, under the bridge, and then over here to the fuel filter regulator that we're going to mount on the side of the frame right here. So I'm going to try to get it as close to the tank as I can. I don't want to mount it anywhere over here because I've got compressors going on over here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the air ride, if I'm going to put it above the tank yet, but I want to leave all this stuff open for any other decision that I make in the future. I like it to always be here on the frame rail. You just have to run those 2 lines right there, connect them in, and then 1 to the front from there. So really easy and simple installation. I'm going to go ahead, and what I do with this is I just find a good spot for it in the frame, and then I just self tap it in with some self tappers through the frame just to hold it in there, and then I can use those self tapper marks for my holes to drill, and then put some nice hardware through there, through the frame and then through that. But self tappers work good because you don't have to try to mark your hole, then drill it, and then hope the holes line up. If you throw a few self tappers through those holes, you know that's exactly where it needs to be. I'm on the frame rail right here, and as you can see, I've got all my fittings on here now. I went ahead and I screwed in the AN fitting right here into this, and the reason I do that is to make sure everything clears, because those ends are going to be on there whenever you start to attach things. So if you try to put it up here, as you can see, there's not enough room. This is hitting, so you have to keep pushing it down until there's enough room where this can swivel. There's also a rivet right here, so you want to keep this out of the way of that rivet, or your line's going to be directly in it. So I usually slide it down just a little bit more, and that way there's plenty of space right there. So if you're looking at it from the top, it's about in line with where this bed bracket is kind of where it starts. So again, it doesn't matter exactly where you put this, as long as you have clearance, there's enough room for that fitting to get in there, and then you just run your lines. That's kind of what that looks like. Here's the back side. You can see we've got 4 self tappers sticking out the back. What I'll do is unbolt those, drill those 4 holes out, and find some nice hardware to bolt that into the frame. right, that's mounted pretty easy. Still have adjustability here. Everything's gonna fit just nice. That looks really good. It's in there real tight. You can see the Holley from the top. I like that. That's what it looks like from the outside. Some bolts, but looks clean. Next, we'll be installing our AN lines to the fittings. So what happens is these come apart, they unscrew just like this right here. And we're going to take this line and we're going to slide it on till it hits all the way against this. And then we're going to clamp this down and clamp it really tight. And what that does is this fitting spreads this line in this fitting and makes a really tight fit. And then once we get this tightened all the way down, then that line is done. We can install this onto all the fittings that we've installed so far. So I'm going to put 2 pieces of line long enough to go from the fuel filter regulator all the way to the tank, and then we're going to route that line and then cut it to length and then bolt everything together. That's a good seal right there. Nice. See how clean that looks? Looks really good. That's why I like this line compared to the 3/8 fuel line, the rubber hose. This just looks a lot cleaner with the ends. I like anything that doesn't have clamps on hoses holding in fuel. This will get really tight and lock in nicely. Make sure we don't have any leaks. I'm going to go under it. This is kind of how I'm going to mount the line. I don't really like when the line is above this. It probably, see, I don't really like how it sticks up above it. I'll put my clamps, I'm just going to drill those clamps in right on the edge of the frame and then one in the middle to hold everything tight. I'll have an air line coming off this side going to this bag right here, and then all my other lines will go around the other side. But this is kind of how I'm running it. All the way down to here. Let me show you. That's how that screws in. See how nice that looks? It's going to run up to the frame right here and then onto a clamp right here, clamp right there. Clamp down a back and then over to right here. So this one is the send. It's going to go on the back right there, just like that. That's how we'll have it ran. And the other one will be on the front and it'll go all the way there. I think it's a nice clean cut. All I'm going to do is blow air through it. This right here. That'll get rid of anything that may have fell into the hose. All right, now we're getting ready to just mount these lines onto the frame. And what I use for that is actually one of these 1-inch clamps. I've got a bunch of different sizes of these, but for the bigger lines like this, a 1-inch works well. Do is use self-tappers to tap this in to the side of the notch where I need them. And this seems to work well. it drills the hole and just taps it into the side. So all I'm gonna do is kind of pull the slack from the line, kind of where I know I want it. I want it tight against the frame here. And then my first kind of mount is gonna be down here on the frame. Then I will have one in the middle of the notch and then one on the back side. It looks really good. If anybody has a magnet tip hex head, send it to me, because for some reason I've gone to the hardware store twice today, but I won't buy a magnet tip to help me out. I just keep letting it fly out of my hand. Just like that. Got the fuel filter regulator, all the lines nicely clamped in to the EFI gas tank. Went ahead and ran my brake lines. You can see those just running across. Did those myself. That looks really good. Starting to come together. I put a little rubber glove to make sure nothing gets down in the gas tank while I'm working on the truck. But this looks great. Got to wire up the sending unit and then wire up the fuel pump. I've got a fuel pump wiring kit that I had left over from the Francis build. But that's it for EFI. Once you run your fuel line up to the front, you'll just plug that in, hook your fuel pump up to a keyed ignition, and then run it to a relay to your battery. And that's pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple to do. All it took was trimming the rear cross member a little bit, mounting it in, running some lines, fuel filter regulator, but this thing is looking great. I think it looks really clean. And here's a sneak peek. The next video coming. I've got those Porter-built control arms on the truck, and that fixed my lock-to-lock issue. It's tucking hard right now. So this truck is bagged. All it's waiting on is the airlift 3P. Once I get the bed back on the truck, I can run the wiring for that. I'll do a video. Also, I went ahead and stripped the engine all the way down to where it's ready to be pulled out of the truck. So as soon as I get over Zach's, we're going to pull that engine out. I'm going to clean up the firewall, install some GMSS panels that are made for factory inner fenders on there, and that'll help cover all the vent holes and all that, and it'll clean up the whole firewall. I'm going to paint it a matte black, similar to the covers that we have here. I've got a cold case radiator, Holley mid-mount drive, valve covers, the air cleaner, all the Holley stuff that's going to go on there. The Sniper 2, excited about that. But trying to get this truck wrapped up. It's getting close. But I've decided also, as soon as I get it wrapped up and I'll take it to a couple shows, I am going to take it over to Taylor's Colors, and we're going to go ahead and paint this thing, because it's got a couple little spots on it that I don't like, a couple little bubble spots. There's a couple little runs, so we're going to sand this thing down. You can see where they kind of left the old color on it. So we're going to take this thing down and put a good paint job all over it, and this truck is going to basically be brand new wheels, new air ride, new suspension, brand new small block that's been rebuilt, paint job, and then we'll move on to the interior. And I haven't decided yet. It's got really good interiors, you can remember from the first video, but I was looking at a nice Snowden seat that had some green and cream plaid in it that would really match the whole truck. The green and the cream, and it had some black stripes in there. This whole engine is going to be blacked out with a little bit of a touch of stainless, kind of like the shock, kind of what we got going on already. A lot of stuff to come. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.